Well, hello.
Hello. I had to change to... Can you hear me?
I can, yes.
Yeah, great. Oh, I hear myself on YouTube. Hang on. Yeah, now it's over the stream. How are you?
Yeah, good. Good. Had a really nice long lay in bed this morning, which was unexpected but very welcome. So, and I haven't got to drive anywhere today, so I am partaking of the Heineken.
I'm just on to some tea.
Well, I have to get up early tomorrow morning to take my daughter into work, so I'll be up at like 4:45. So I don't drink on a Saturday evening, and so I indulge on the afternoon. Cheers.
Cheers.
Oh, that's good. Oh yes, I was all geared up for sitting up this afternoon, just tinkering and doing stuff and listening to Ranzee, and I was sat there waiting and I thought, this is a bit odd, it's a bit quiet.
Yeah.
And then I looked and it said, going live in 6 days' time. Oh.
Yeah, I saw it. It was a little later than usual, and I was waiting too, and then I saw it was next week.
Yeah, well, I'm glad I wasn't the only one.
Yeah.
Because I would have really thought I'd lost it then. But oh,
I hope some more will join.
Yeah, did you share the link around anywhere? Or?
Yeah, I did. I can do it again. Here it is.
Just
oh, that's the stream. That's not the link for the to join. I'll find it.
Out there.
That's it.
Might be worth posting something on Ranzee's Facebook, or the show Facebook.
Yeah, I've thought about it, but I wanted to wait till someone joined me, so it wasn't a total bummer.
Build and they shall come, as they say.
Yeah. I'm on Synth and streaming geekery. I can post it there.
Yeah, I'll stick it on the ProSynth network.
Perhaps I should only.
Oh, David's there.
Oh, great. Yeah. Let's take the YouTube link.
Oh, excuse me. There you go. Share it over there. It's officially a party now that David's here. Yeah. What's going on here?
Okay, it's
there we go.
Posted now.
Keyth here.
Let's see how many turns up. Yes, David and Keyth are there.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Well, you and I, we've talked about doing a show about FM later.
Yes.
And I think we should keep it for later because I think there's plenty to talk about.
Indeed.
You know, I'm one of those who's trying FM, but really can't find that. I know how to make sounds and all that, but yeah, let's return to that later.
Yeah. That's.
So
I think once you've got the basics down, it's then a case. The way I kind of got to grips with it was more. And I know this sounds really. I mean, not everyone has the opportunity to do this, but when you look at a DX1, where everything is displayed for you with this, these glorious red LED displays, you can pick a sound, any sound, and then instantly see which algorithm is being used, and you can start making a mental note. All right, so the electric piano sound, for example, which I still think is one of the greatest synth patches of all time, and I'll fight anyone that disagrees. But you can see straight away that's algorithm number 5. So you think, well, if I'm looking for a piano type sound, that's where I start. I start with algorithm 5. And then you look at algorithm 5 and you understand how it's, what it's doing. So which operators are carriers, which operators are modulators, which one's got the feedback going in. And then you can start worrying about envelope generators and all the other little bits. But it does make it easy if you can see. And that's why I love the Kodamo Essence FM, because you can see everything. It's and it's a lot cheaper than buying a DX1, and it's a lot smaller too. So
I don't think the up 6 is that bad as I make it sound. No.
I've not used the hardware. I've got the software.
Yeah.
But,
the software I think is terrible. But that's because Korg released an update for the wave state where it really got very good, but it was bad from the start,
right?
Or not too good at the start, and it got very good in version 2, and that hasn't really happened for the up 6. It's still terrible. One of my problems with FM is there's a phase where you have to listen to the sharp tones, and I hate the sharp tones. And that's where it's not inspiring me.
Yeah.
So that's my problem with FM. I know the end result can be good, but all the work in the middle is not inspiring.
It's not simple and straightforward as subtractive analog synth, where that signal flow in most cases, that signal flow is really obvious, and what you're doing is obvious, and you can almost, like Manny Fernandez will tell you that he knows that if he does certain things, he knows what the sonic outcome's going to be. With FM,
but that's exactly that. You have to know.
Yeah.
Else you sit and try to make something and it sounds terrible, and you have to start all over,
and that's uninspiring, and and it will put you off. It will make you go, forget this. I'll do something else.
Exactly, but it can sound really good.
Subtractive synthesis is very simple for most people to say. Yeah, I know that if I turn this knob, I know what I'm going to get. And it's very simple for that. Whereas with FM, it's like, if I turn this knob, it might do this or it might do that, and you're never quite sure. So it does take time. And I am no way an expert at all. But I don't think anybody really is beyond people like Manny Fernandez. So yes,
yeah, it's strange. With the subtractive synthesis, it sounds good all the way, during the process of making a patch, where you have to go through a state with FM where, unless you know what you're doing, so you don't listen while you do it, but just turn the knobs and so on. But if you don't know that then you have to go through the process where there are parts where it doesn't sound so
Yeah.
good. Yeah.
It's just like modelling stuff out of clay, isn't it? You know that if you pinch this and squeeze that and add a bit here, you're going to get what's here, what's in your mind's eye or ear, in the case of synths. But with FM, it's just like, well, I'll just turn all these things until I get close, and then. But if you kind of understand the flow of how things work and what they do, I mean, one of the things that helped me get my head around it was understanding that an operator in FM is essentially a miniature synthesizer.
Mm.
And because each operator contains an oscillator, an amplifier, and an envelope. And that's a more subtractive way of thinking of things. And so you can look at that and think, oh, okay, so if I do that. And it starts to make sense. And then, of course, the understanding that what you're hearing is these bits that are connected to the audio path, these operators down here, and all these other things are just affecting those sounds. So, yeah, it's a combination of stuff, but it's worth spending time with, because the outcome can be so good. And the Op 6, I mean, I've not tried the hardware, but I've seen lots of people using it, and they go at it. They see these 6 faders and the 6 is it rotaries next to, or underneath or above, I can't remember now, and they're just like going until and they're not understanding that, is it the purple ones, I can't remember which, there's purple and red, and one color is operator, one color is carrier and one color is modulator. And they're just mashing things around until they get something, and I'm thinking, well, you're missing the point. It's the carriers that are the ones that are outputting the sounds, and everything else is affecting those things.
Yeah.
So they're just, I think if you come at it from this has got to work like subtractive, you'll never get anything good out of it. You've got to kind of unlearn.
Yeah. But the Op 6 does have a filter.
And that's another thing.
Both for operators and for the main, for the amplifier. And that's not normal on FM synths.
Nope. We don't do filters in FM.
No, you do it in FM.
Exactly. Yeah, it's the opposite. You're not trying to strip harmonics away. You're adding harmonics or in harmonics.
Yeah.
So you just reminded me about Korg. I haven't checked my Korg updates, and there are some updates to run. So I'm going to be doing that while I chat away.
But there are no new updates on either the Wave State Op 6 or Minilock.
There's a Wave State native update, and there's a Wave State.
Yeah, but it's still 6 months old or something like that. It's 1.1.1.
That's it. Yeah.
There's a guy called Mike who made a video about it. But it's still 6 months ago it was released. So but it is the latest. So his video was to make his patch libraries work on the new version. So
right.
I can't remember his name. It's Mike Scholz, I think. He does very good libraries. I think it's from Austria or somewhere like that. Switzerland, perhaps. Well, I've always wondered what you do. What do you work with?
What's my day job?
Yeah.
Hey, well, it's quite boring. I am an instructional designer by trade, so I've been involved in training, as in training people to use technology mostly, for probably the last 20 odd years, I think. And it was always in the classroom. So we would be sent. I'd work for a company who would maybe producing a piece of software, and then we would go to the end users and we would teach them how to use it as part of their implementation process. And I ended up working for a company that had a government contract with the UK government with the criminal justice system, and so I was out and around the country training court staff how to use the software, the case processing and case management software. So I did that, and that was really good fun because you travel around the country, all on the government's ticket or the taxpayers' money, and going. It wasn't glamorous, but it was good fun. And eventually, that project, as with any training project, once you've trained people, that's it. Yeah. Until there's something new coming along, so you have to wait for that. So a lot of the time, the jobs, they finish and you move on. And I ended up sitting around there for a few years, not doing much. And eventually, they laid us off. The world of government contracts, I guess it's the same everywhere in the world, but certainly here in the UK, there are companies like Accenture, Capita, what's the other one? KPMG. There's a few others that their business is other businesses. They buy the businesses and get the government contracts and then do the work at the lowest possible price. So they were selling the owner of our company, it was a privately owned company, decided he was going to retire and sell up, and he was going to sell it to these to one of these companies, and therefore laid us off because we were surplus to requirements. So I considered going self-employed for a while, and then because my children were sort of 6-7 years old at the time, and I thought, no, I can't take that risk. So completely out of the blue, and so coincidentally and incredibly fortunately, somebody I used to work with who was an HR consultant with with a company phoned me up about a week after I got told I was losing my job, saying, "Do you want a job?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And he said, "Oh, you can come and work for us." And it's a big American company called HID, and the H stands for Hughes, as in Howard Hughes. The eccentric entrepreneur, inventor, airplane designer, famous for wearing shoe boxes on his feet and not going out much, portrayed by Leonardo DiCaprio, apparently, in the film. But the company makes predominantly RFID access control systems. So if you ever use a card to open the door, the chances are that either the technology inside the reader or the technology in the card, or both, or some part of that system is HID. So I joined as a trainer to teach people about the hardware and how it all worked, and so therefore I had to learn all about RFID technology and UHF and Bluetooth and Wi-Fi and all this kind of stuff. And then a few years ago, the department expanded. We were a very small team. There's only 10 people in the team, but we expanded, and they said, we need an instructional designer, because we weren't doing classroom training anymore, because I was traveling around the world, all around, from as far north as Reykjavik, as far south as Johannesburg, as far east as Dubai, as far west as California. So I was, big area that I was traveling around. And eventually that kind of slowed down. And then, of course, COVID. So now I'm an instructional designer, where I sit here in this chair every day at this computer, designing training for that company, so that people can take it online. So I'm still training, I'm still teaching people, but I'm actually doing the design. So it's not just how it looks and how it sounds, and I do all the voiceovers for it as well, but also how the training works. So it's instructional design. It's designing something that's going to work and teach someone how to do whatever it is. So currently working on printers. We do the printers that print on those cards and encode the cards as well. So these are big, industrial size printers that you'll find in banks and what have you. So we're currently doing some work on those. We've got a laser engraver, so you put the card in, it prints the card, and then it laser engraves whatever you want, whether it's an image or just some words, or so it's a high security thing. So, but everything now is going with these things, so we're big in that world as well. So if you use an iPhone or a mobile device to access a door, open your car, pay for goods, then we work very closely with Apple. We're one of the very few select companies that work with Apple on Apple Wallet. So yeah, we do a lot of that stuff. But yeah, I don't do any of the really interesting technical stuff. I just tell people how to use it. So that's what I do at the moment.
Yeah.
And then on the side, I've got all my freelance jobs, which are writing, mainly music tech stuff. So
earlier then, how did you start with music?
Well, I mean, I've always been into it, always been interested by it, fascinated by it. I was a drummer to start with. So I started, I guess my first, probably about age 12, 13, I started drumming. Before that, I was just doing things like the normal school things, like playing recorder, the recorder in the school band or stuff like that, and reading about music technology and being into electronic music. Or I was into all sorts of music, and electronic music was one thing. But being fascinated, I think Gary Newman was the one that kind of knocked the door down for me. I was like, what the hell is that? And I need to know how that's made, and I want to know how it works. And so I'd just buy magazines like 1-2 Testing, or later on Sound on Sound and stuff, and just learn about it all. And it just kind of festered. And I was playing drums in all sorts of bands, mostly covers bands in pubs, until the age of, I don't know, early 20s. And I wasn't. I'd gone for a job. I'd actually gone for a job at a recording studio about when I was 17 years old, but they were offering me £10 a week less than what I was earning working in the supermarket. And they wanted me to do all. It was just the dog's body. It was cleaning the toilets, skimming the pool, making the tea for the bands, and all this kind of stuff. And I should have done it. I should have bitten the bullet, but I was living at home with my mum and my stepdad, and me and my stepdad did not get along. It was and I just needed to get out, and there was no way I could get out on the salary that I was on, let alone £10 a week less. So I turned it down. Biggest regret, I guess, of my life. So yeah, I kind of carried on drumming, and then I was in this band, and it was some old mates that I'd been in bands with before, and they got back in touch and said, we need a drummer because we've got a drum machine at the moment, and we don't want a drum machine, we want a real drummer. So I'm like, cool. So I joined that band, and the guy who owned the drum machine was the keyboard player. They didn't have a bass player. It was 2 guitarists and a keyboard player, and the keyboard player had a Juno 106 and a Casio CZ5000. I think that's what it was. And he would play the bass parts on the Casio, and he would do the chord parts on the Juno. And so they didn't have a bass player, and so he had the drum machine as well. So he gave me, or lent me, the drum machine, which is a Casio RZ1. And he said, all our drum patterns are on there, so listen to those, and you'll know what you're doing. You know how many bars there are and how long the intros are and what have you. So then I had, for the first time, I had a proper drum machine, because up until then I was just using a Commodore 64 for stuff, which wasn't very good. I think I bought the Yamaha VSS 200 little sampler thing.
Well, if the Commodore could be synced, I think it would have been very good.
It would, yeah. I mean, you could buy all sorts of attachments for it. I had strangely enough, the FM module for it, and the 61 note controller, which I've still got actually. I haven't got a Commodore 64, but I've still got that. So yeah, I was slowly kind of getting into it, but I was never earning enough money to do anything about it, to go out and buy my own stuff. And it was only when I changed employer, I went to a big national retail organization, and they had this scheme for management where you would get given some shares in the company, and they would sit in a trust for 3 to 5 years, and at the end of that 3 or 5 year period, you could do one of 2 or 3 things. You could buy the shares at a greatly reduced price because you're an employee, and then you could keep those shares and do what you want with them. Or you could sell them and sell them at the full market price, but only pay this discounted price, so you keep the profit. And we used to sit there with a calculator and just working it all out, and I worked out that this, I think it was 1995. It was around 95, 96. I worked out that I'd have about 600 quid. And at that point, I was like, right, I'm going to go for it. So I got my copy of Sound on Sound, which back then used to come with an insert magazine, which was the catalogue for a shop in London on Charing Cross Road called Turnkey, which everybody talks about Turnkey, or what it used to be before Turnkey. Soho Soundhouse. That's it, Soho Soundhouse. And in this catalogue, every month was like all the latest gear, but on the front few pages, there would be their bargains, their offers, their end-of-line sales or stuff like that. So I looked through there for a few months trying to figure out how can I get the best value for money. And I ended up choosing a Roland SC88 sound canvas, a little half-width 1U module, along with a 49 key controller from a company called Evolution, which I think then got acquired by M Audio some years later. And it came with a free copy of Evolution's DAW, which was called Evolution Audio. And it was essentially, it was a poor Cubase ripoff. But, I thought that's going to save me money because I won't have to go out and buy a separate DAW, because Cubase back then was, well, about much the same as it is now. It's about 400 or 500 quid. So I went down to London and I bought the module, the keyboard, everything. I got home that night about 1 a.m. Couldn't wait. Set it all up on my computer, installed the software. Now, bearing in mind, this is 95 or something. I don't think USB existed at the time. I think USB came a few years later.
It's about there.
Yeah. So the only way that you could connect a MIDI device to a computer was with some elaborate interface. But Roland had got this serial interface. Actually, it was Roland and Yamaha, I think Korg as well, which is little TG connections. And there was an adapter cable that you could buy that connected the serial MIDI port on the back of the synth to, I believe, your printer port.
Yeah,
the
no,
LPT.
it was you had a serial port on the computer, and it was there.
It was a D pin, D sub something or other. I've still got the cable somewhere, I'm sure I have. Yeah. But so I got this, and everything worked. But before I got that, I can't remember what I was doing. I was trying to connect my controller to the SC88. Bearing in mind, this is my first MIDI thing. I've never messed with MIDI before. I knew MIDI existed. I knew that it was the witchcraft that sat behind being able to connect all these things together and have them work. I figured it was quite simple because you've got all these ports, one marked in, one marked out. So I thought, well, here's my MIDI cable. In. No, that's not working. Okay, out to out. No, that's not working. All right, in to in, out to out. Still nothing. I think, what the hell am I doing wrong? And because it was 1 o'clock in the morning, or probably gone 1 o'clock in the morning, we didn't have the internet. The manuals were pretty slim. I was scratching my head, and eventually I thought, well, the only thing I haven't tried is connecting the out port to the in port. But that wouldn't work because it's out to in. Surely it's into it. Of course, I put out to in, and it worked. Oh. I think we all probably got that tail or similar tails. Yeah. And that was it. And so then I was living with my first wife. We just bought a little 2 up, 2 down starter home. So there was only 1 bedroom. There was no room for a studio. So I was in the corner with my little 386 or 486 computer, this module and a controller. And all of a sudden it was like there'd been a dam in my head, and the dam burst, because now I was able to create multi-track compositions, because the SC88 is 64-note polyphonic, 32-part multi-timbral. So I could do full compositions on this one module, albeit with a General MIDI stroke GS sound library. And that was it. I still to this day, I mean, I'm 53 years old this year, and I still maintain that year was my most productive year musically, when I had 1 crappy synthesizer, an old computer, and a controller. And then I started buying other gear.
Before we go to that, I will say you are right about USB. It came a little later, because I remember Bill Gates presenting that now Windows could handle USB, and it resulted in a blue screen when he inserted the USB jack.
Well, yeah, it was. I remember my first USB musical device was a mixer that was called the Event Easy Bus mixer, and Event Electronics were quite a big company in. Oh, there he is. No, there's a little bit of there. Yeah. Event Electronics don't exist anymore, I don't think. But they used to do monitors, speakers and stuff, and were very highly regarded. And then there was an article in, I think it was Sound on Sound or Future Music, that presented the Event EasyBus 3-in-1 mixer. And the 3 was audio hardware mixer, USB audio interface, and USB control surface. And I thought, that's it. That's the answer to my dreams. That's like, it's the audio interface, so I can plug everything in. It's the hardware mixer, so I can stick all of my synths in, because at the time I'd got this crappy little, I think it was a MIDI Man, tiny little, just a little tabletop. It was about as big as, actually it was about as big as that is now. And it was USB 1. And you plugged the USB cable in, and you loaded the drivers and got it all working. As soon as you start recording audio and trying to play audio back, it would just go, bus speed's too slow. And so they eventually released slightly updated drivers, and it got better, but still wasn't perfect. And then about 6 months after that, they abandoned it.
Yeah. I have to I have to say, Wagoo, I will mute your sound. You can unmute if you have anything to say, because you are a bit noisy.
Oh, okay. I'm Sheen. I didn't know actually, because there's no icon on the.
No, I could.
Video feed.
Where's his voice?
Okay, good. But you can just unmute it if you want to say something.
How's that? Because I turned off my giant server that's sat beside me being built.
It's better. It's still there, but it's.
It sounds like you've got 50
more
other
than half
giant servers. How are you, Wags?
Yeah, not bad.
Good.
Yeah. I didn't know I was on stream because there's no icon on the stream on the screen. So
spooky, the voice detached. This is just adding to your mystique. You know, you're this voice from nowhere, just watching everything. You are. That's it. You're God. That's what it is.
Yeah,
You're God.
He's going to reveal.
There should be an icon of a Waldorf cube, but who knows?
Oh dear. So yeah, that's how I got into it, and then I started buying gear. I think the next thing I bought was a Yamaha CS1X, which I still wish I hadn't sold, but I know who's got it. He's making good use of it, so that's cool. Then I bought
the AN1X instead.
I should have done, but I couldn't afford it at the time. The CS1X was, really pushing it because I just bought Cubase as well. Cubase 3 before VST. So yeah, the CS1X was the second thing, and then the Prophecy, because I'd looked at the Prophecy when I was looking to buy my first synth, and it had just come out. Yeah, so it must have been about 95, 96. And like it was on every back page of every magazine, or is it inside the front cover. And I remember looking at the price and thinking, £1,200 for an instrument that plays one note at a time. What the fuck are they smoking? Couldn't get my head around why somebody would pay £1,200 for a monophonic synth. Not realizing how awesome it was. And then I went to the Z1 launch, I think it was, and outside the because they erected this kind of tent within the trade show hall, and outside they'd got some Z1s that you could play on, some Prophecies and some Trinities. And I went up to this Prophecy fully expecting to be completely justified by playing this thing, and it was just, what the fuck? And I can't remember which patch they got loaded in. It was like, oh my god, it's full of stars. It's just amazing. And that was it. And then I managed to find one at the next showroom model at 50% off. So I thought, I'll have that.
Yeah, I just got my Prophecy last year, and it's glorious.
It is. It's just one of the most amazing synthesizers ever built. I think the Z1. I mean, I've got a Z1 now, and I still think the Prophecy is a better synth. Z1's great, but it's not the Prophecy.
I did badger the people who are behind the modern Mod 6, Mod Wave, and the other one. I think the American devs for called Pi-based synths to do a new physical modeling synth, and they seemed really up for it. So who knows? Maybe they'll do something new.
They've got the credentials. I mean, Korg has got the credentials, shall I say? Historically. I wish Yamaha would do. You know full well what I think about Yamaha and physical modeling. It's funny actually. I was talking to Ty the other day when we were setting up this Osmo show for next week, and he says, Robbie, you'll love this. It's absolutely effing this and brilliant and blah blah blah. And he said it takes the Prophecy and the VL1 and yes, even the VP1 and blah blah blah, and it does all of that and more, which I thought was a pretty bold statement. So I'll be interested to see how that plays out.
But then he came on Kent's show the other day. He's like, "Oh yeah, I'm having these glitches with it," and he was just like, "Yeah." He sounded off. I was like, "Dude, we just all pre-ordered this. The remaining, what are you doing to us?"
I've had my Osmos for about a week, and it's glorious.
Yeah,
the key clashing thing is not an issue at all.
It's just, that's what I mean. That's what
I know. It was more funny. It was like, "Oh, dude, you're supposed to like."
I think when Ty was talking about, you said, the mechanics, the sound and the mechanics is a little off-putting to start with. But he says then when you realise why it does all, the actual physics behind it all, of course it does that. Because how else would you do it, with current technology? How else would you do that? So it is kind of one of those things.
It looks so nice, like in the photos. I'm sure Wagoo can tell me how nice it is. But I'm actually thinking of putting it upstairs instead of where a piano would go, and just so I could just play it because sometimes in the studio it's not the most convenient way for me to be accessible, I guess is the best way to put it. And then I got the really brilliant idea. I was like, well, what if the kids learned on, instead of a piano, what if I taught them, what if they learned the Osmos at their age, even if they noodled like I did, can you imagine like that would become like normal for them, that sensitivity? So that's my ingenious plot for justifying the purchase.
Thing is, though,
Also freeing up space in the studio.
Yeah, but if the Osmos technology becomes more prevalent, whether it's through Expressive E or through other companies doing similar things, or however they would do that, moving from that to then a traditional synthesizer or keyboard would be quite a disappointment, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it could be.
Because you just don't have... You get so used to being able to stroke or tap or wiggle that when you go to a regular thing and you're going, well, it's boring. It's just on and off.
Unless it's some kind of hardcore, Moog or something that you could, where it's just that analog and you just... Where the knobs and everything, the sensitivity.
I wonder if they'd appreciate more.
Really, the instrument, not the keys.
Yeah.
In my opinion.
No, yeah. I wonder if they'd appreciate the Osmos more if they had a grounding in just traditional keyboards. And then
I would just... The reality of having pianos in the house upstairs is becoming almost farcical.
Yeah.
And anyone that does, I celebrate you. I tried, and the minute we had kids, it was out the door to some other musician who would probably have it for a couple of years before it went out. But you know what I mean? So,
yeah,
kind of like, what is going to be the family instrument? Are we ever going to have those anymore? Or just...
I bought... Actually, no, I didn't pay anything for it. It came off something like Freecycle. An Elka X605, which is a dual manual combo organ.
Yes. Yeah.
And it was stunning. It didn't have any legs. All it had was the foot pedals, which are like proper organ style, foot pedals, and the unit. And I said to my wife, I said, why don't we set this up in, downstairs so that the kids can play around with it?
Yeah, jam on it.
She wasn't keen, but her argument was, and I couldn't argue with her argument, was that there was no room. There just wasn't room for it. It would go in a place and something else would have to just disappear, like, dining room table would have to go or sofa would have to go. So in the end, it lived up in my studio for about 3 months, and I got fed up because I just got fed up with it sitting around, so I sold it, and I sold it to a collector in Italy. And it cost more to ship it than she paid me for it. But, I got it free anyway.
I had a neighbor who had, when I lived on the East Coast, and he was kind of a handyman, but if he saw someone getting rid of a piano, he was kind of a pack rat. And he was single, and so he had like a few pianos in his house. And when I moved in, we got talking about music, and he played drums a little bit. He's like, I got couple pianos. I got one, if you want it. So I got it over into the house. It was a baby grand, classic 1920s ish, and I was just in love, and I was playing it all the time. And that, and then like I said, but it was a 900 square foot house. So the minute we needed that room, it wasn't practical. Now growing up, our piano actually stayed in the basement. We had kind of an unfinished basement. And it was kind of just a basement, not a family room. So I would sneak down there and play it. I played it all the time. Nobody else would go down there. But I sat.
The Elka X705 looks glorious. The space organ. Yeah. But you can get organs for like £1 if you pick them up. It's just
yes. You need IKEA to like start putting them in those showrooms. And
if I had a barn, I'd totally collect organs for £1 each. But
like with all the family sitting around together, and the kids are playing the organ, we're all singing. So that's what we're gonna do, hon. That's what we're getting. It's gonna be big.
Well, I kind of sort of achieved it when I got the DX1, because there was no way it was coming up here, because I got to fit it up the stairway, and I've got a really bad back, and there's just no room, so it had to go downstairs. So it's kind of de facto been forced into this space where it kind of sits at the moment. And I keep saying to the wife, there's more space in the in the front room for us to put this in. No, it's not coming in here. Not coming in here. Okay. So
you must have room in your games room though, because you have the DX1 in there.
That's where it is, and there is no. So we've got a sofa. We've got like an L-shaped IKEA sofa bed in there for when we have guests over, and then there's an IKEA Calyx-based television unit, so that the screen's bolted onto the back of the thing, and that's where the PlayStation stuff is. And that's it. And there's always my hi-fi in the corner, and you can't really do much. And my son keeps asking, to move things around because he's playing VR in there, so he needs to do all of this. And every time he has friends over, I have to go downstairs and sort of read the riot act and say, "You see that thing there? People pay six-figure sums for that. Stupid people, but they pay six-figure sums for that. So please be careful." But I can't. I was just having a look at Keyth. Afternoon, Keyth. By the way, where's your TX? Where's your TX?
Sitting to my
it's over
left.
there. I'm getting one.
Probably turn it over there.
Oh yeah.
I see. Yeah, behind the iPad. Yeah.
Because unfortunately, I'm on a three-way thing here. The iPhone. I've got a 32-inch monitor, so I can read the chat. And if I want to type, I have to get this and type letters.
Oh no.
Yeah, and then I've got the iPad to type. But I bought myself a keyboard for here. I cannot get it to communicate. Right. So
you need a bigger shed, mate. You need a bigger shed.
It's a loft.
Oh, it's a loft, is it? Oh, I thought it was a shed.
Yeah. No, not like Robin. No, I think I'm a bit better off than Robin in that respect.
That's nice up there.
But yeah,
it's good to see D-beams on camera.
Yeah.
With that V-synth.
Yeah.
Sorry. Yeah. This one, yeah.
Yeah.
D-beams. Don't cross the D-beams.
They're over the back there. One's on. Hold on, that's better.
I sealed a deal on a TX816 last night.
So my prediction came right then.
Yes,
it was already right. I mean, I've been speaking to this guy, but so I'm gonna pick it up next Saturday actually,
Oh, and if you want to dream of 16 bells, or is it 32 you want?
No, 16. It was two TX816s. So, I still have the chance.
Another one then.
Well, I still have the chance to buy another one, but I was holding out for that one, which is the one in America. And then this one came up, and I thought,
the cheapest one, but I think is in Australia.
Yeah, well, this was kind of the thing with the one in America. It was a good price, but shipping costs would have been at least a couple of hundred, if not more, because they're really heavy.
Really heavy.
Customs would have been at least another £200 to £300 on top of that. Then it's a 110 voltage machine, so I'd have to swap the power supply out. I don't really like step down units, so however much that would have been. And then it's not only that, it's just the anxiety involved with shipping something that big, that rare, that expensive from California to the UK was just so when this one appeared in the UK, which was with the UK power supply, and it made more financial sense. In fact, it probably would have worked out cheaper, so I managed to haggle a little bit, so that was good. So yeah, go and pick that up on literally about 1 week from now. I should be there. And then
where are you going for that?
Nottingham. So it's about
across
2.5, 3 hours drive. Yeah. So not too bad. So I will then have the full I think the full set, apart from the lesser 4-op, there's 3. You know, the 27, the 100, and the 21. I don't have, but
You don't have a Centennial.
oh yeah, I haven't got Centennial. Oh, don't say that. They're even more rare than the DX1. So
There was one last year, I think about July or something, on eBay, and somebody had broken it. Like, it was a bit crushed, but it was really cheap, and I missed it. I only saw it in my emails like after it had sold.
oh, yeah. The thing is, though, the Centennial is just a 76 note DX7 Mark II. And apart from the color scheme and the glow in the dark keys, there's really, you know, it doesn't offer anything other than its exclusivity and the leather band manual, apparently.
But glow in the dark keys, wow.
Glow in the dark keys, and gold, real gold. Apparently, the buttons are real gold plated. But yeah, one day, you never know. But no, I think I shall hit the brakes once this 816 arrives. He says.
I mean, you still don't have a Hydroset.
Well, I mean, this was the thing. I was sat here the other day thinking, what I'm paying for this TX816 would get me an Osmos.
True. Mm-hmm.
What I'm paying for this TX816 would get me a bunch of stuff. Like, it would get me a Hydrosynth Explorer, and, you know, with change.
Yeah, but I wouldn't bother with an Explorer, really.
Not the Explorer, sorry, not the Explorer, the Deluxe.
49.
The Deluxe, yeah.
I'll put Deluxe, okay.
Because the Deluxe is about, what, 1,500? 1,500?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, there you go. Explorer.
I have the Explorer and the old keyboard. I really think the Explorer is one of the best small keys keyboard I've ever had. So it's not bad. The poly aftertouch is very good on it. So I do like the Explorer, but of course bigger keys are always better. But
well, it does have an advantage over the 49 because it has release velocity, which the 49 doesn't have.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I still, do you know, I'm not a mini keys person, but the mini freak, don't even think about it. I seriously doesn't even cross my mind that they're mini keys. And they finally developed a touch-sensitive pitch bend that doesn't do that horrible thing that as soon as you put your finger on it, it shifts the pitch by 0.5 cent up or down, because it's so accurate. There is a zone in the middle that you can just put your finger on, doesn't do anything. Then when you move it, it kicks in. So they've finally got that right, which I think is rather cool.
To be honest with you, I don't really hate mini keys because my first real synth was a Yamaha PSS 170, which was mini keys in the you know, mid to late 80s, and you know, I've never really had a problem with mini keys.
Yeah, they're not my favorite, but if they feel generally good, like the Mini Freak, I'm using that as a kind of a controller right now.
Yeah, they're nice keys, aren't they? I mean,
yeah,
the action is as light. It's like the action has reduced with the size of the key. It doesn't feel like it's too heavy, but it doesn't feel like it's too light. It's actually really nice.
Yeah, and it's not too, I guess, the spongy is the word people use.
And I love the orange felt at the back.
Yeah.
It's such a nice little touch.
Yeah, it's that synthesizer. I finally got all the editor, you know, everything, and typically that's not my thing, but I liked it so much. I just want to keep the controller here and just keep that editor open. And I'm like, this is just amazing. Like, it's such a cool, and for what you paid, I'm like, God, this is like.
Yeah, I love it too. It sounds incredible, but I have the feeling in a month or two I will be tired of the effects, and then it all sounds the same.
Except that you do like what? How about like just the arpeggiator and the sequencer and all that? Yeah. That is really well designed. I mean, you can play it. I don't know. Arturia is really good about using those random features and stuff. Some of the stuff that, dare I say, in your rack would be more typical. You're really used to seeing. You're just like, oh yeah, let's just, put a little this on and kind of change up everything. They did a really good job of bringing some of that into the Mini Freak to make it really accessible. Where people are going, wow, this is mind blowing. I'm going, yeah, it's mind blowing, sort of. It's better. It's more their design. It's that they get it. They've always been a company, I think, that really gets it. So I don't know. That's how I'm selling myself. I know what you're saying. At some point, they're going to have to give us more.
Yeah.
We want more sounds. We want more sounds.
But when you think about what Arturia have achieved, particularly with their hardware synths, and you look at what you can buy from Arturia now in hardware, and they're up there now with the big boys in terms of quality, variety, and engagement. The fact that these things really are inspiring. That I love the Polybrute, and this is a perfect kind of companion.
Well, that's what makes them so fascinating. Is they're not. You could just say, oh, they just kind of tinker on the lower ends, but then they came out and said, did something so grandiose with Matrix Brute and the Polybrute, and you went, wow.
Yeah. I love the Arturia Origin, and nobody ever really talks about it.
Yeah, well,
it's it kind of uses the old V collection stuff, but you can combine like various filter sections or oscillators together in a modular kind of way.
Yeah.
So you can make synthesizers inside the synthesizer, and it's a really, really amazing sounding synth. It's just really nice sounding.
It's definitely one that would be fun to have as a, dare I say, a collector's piece, but it would be fun.
It makes you wonder if they'd ever revisit that. But then,
I know you do. It would be.
I think they should, if they did a new synth like that, they should do like an Origin 2 combined with Piglets. Their soft synth with wavetables and all that kind of thing. Piglets and
Took me a second.
Piglets and the updated V collection stuff. That would be really, really interesting synth.
Well, I think getting back to Moog, I don't even know. I can't even pick anymore. I really can't. I think they've got to go this route too. I think they've got to take like that Animoog Z engine and stuff, and they've got to get it in a Mini Freak type, hardware.
The Mooga Fugas, VSCs was really a big surprise, really.
So they got to take that, and they could take some of those Fogers and put them in the effects section. It's sort of a no-brainer, but I know financially I recognize the business side of things. But I'm looking at it going, you guys got to do this. You just got to do it. Like, unless you're just going to give up, you just can't keep making these monosynths. It's just, God bless.
Well, they made a policy of them. It didn't really hit so good. I mean, at least the levels were a problem on the Moog one, I think. If you turn down the levels severely, then it can sound good, but it's similar to the Andromeda, really. It's like it distorts in a not very nice way unless you turn the levels down a lot.
Yeah, I think they're still licking their wounds with that one, and I don't know if they see it as an embarrassment to the legacy.
I mean, the weird thing is that you can't even modulate effects parameters on the Moog 1 still, and you can do that on the DeepMind 12. It's such a basic thing that should have been added years ago.
Yeah,
you just wonder is there a talent void right in that at the company, or is there something? It feels like there's been something eternally off with them.
Well, they did have a big scandal internally, right?
Yeah.
Well, they've had a few. And whatever happened to Amos? Every time I ask, everyone just goes, And I go, really? He was like the face. And then
Yeah.
one day we just never heard of his name again. He just disappeared, unless I missed something. And
I'm trying to remember what I heard. I know
something had to happen. It just doesn't make sense to me, you know.
I think because the fact that Amos was that 1 foot in the legacy,
Yeah.
1
Oh
foot
yeah.
in the new, that he was crucial to tying it, and now that link has gone, it seems like the link to the true legacy stuff. Because quite honestly, I mean, everything that Moog have put out in the last few years just been meh.
Oh, I know. They can sometimes, like with that Boot Mavis thing. I mean, it's almost like you got.
Well, I will say the grandmother and matriarch really sound good.
Yeah, the grandma.
Even though they're based off the late 60s modular circuits, but they really sound good. At least at the hands of Lisa Belladonna.
Well,
probably the
anything
first
sounds
one.
good in her hands.
It is
Of
a
course.
cool piece. I do like it. I really like it, but I'm just like, there is a certain redundancy, I feel, And I have a Sub 37. I love it. I think it was a really great moment. Design. I liked that it sounded a little different. And for me, it was like, this is great. And then everything since, I've been like, well, okay. But definitely that company's felt a little off culture-wise. Eternally Vision. They're something's going on, and it's fine. I don't really judge them because it could be a million reasons, but it'll be interesting to try to figure out if they've got another gear in them or if they're just going to kind of.
Well, we predicted it last night, didn't we? The Moog stepmom.
Yeah, it's always female-based names. It's never. There would never be a male, but like a grandfather or something. And if they did release a grandfather, it would have to be worse than a grandmother, just because of reasons.
Well, so just because of recent stuff, that would probably be the Moog non-binary something or other, just to make sure they don't. See, Cleo agrees.
Or it doesn't, but it's one or the other.
And Mavis is hilarious, really, if you've ever seen Coronation Street in the 90s.
Yeah, they definitely are trying to hang up, still playing this as the educators and
they're trying to
historians of analog sense or something. I don't know what they're doing. I sort of get it, but
I mean, they did have a Moog bed at NAMM like 5 years ago or so, where you can play your synthesizers in bed.
But I say all that, and then I got the subharmonica, and that's actually kind of brilliant. So I guess I should shut up because that is probably about one of the coolest.
It just makes me want to get the original subharmonica, not the release version, because there was because it was like a exclusive Moog builder thing for years, and then they actually released it.
Oh yeah, I remember.
The one. Yeah.
It's a pretty interesting synth though, and it definitely makes you use your ears. You know what I mean? It's not easy, and that's what I like about it. I like synths that kind of force me to push me a little bit, to kind of not be able to just go.
I'm building a big.
Why do I do this? What am I doing here? You know what I mean? It's just like I can't.
I'm building a big Moog clone style thing in Eurorack, and it's mostly Behringer System 55 stuff, but also some AM synth stuff like the ring modulator, and I need to add subharmonica, Mother 32, and all that kind of thing as well.
Another thing, what is your experience with stands? This one, I really hated assembling this. The screws are in there. I needed something angled to turn that, and this one up here has a hole, so it had to go in there, and I had trouble finding a screwdriver which was thin enough and long enough to reach the screw in there. It took me more than an hour to assemble this 2 parts with 8 screws each. It was worse than something from IKEA.
What's it designed to hold?
I haven't even tried it yet. I don't know if it's a one-night stand or what it is.
Oh, very good. One night stand.
Yeah.
But what's it designed to hold, or is it just generic?
It's designed to hold small synths, like these.
Okay.
But I don't know if it's possible. There it's not. Up here it is. I don't know if the microfreak can be there. It probably can't.
Yeah.
So it's perhaps the Medusa and the microfreak and a Keystep Pro or something like that. I'm not sure it can do much more than that.
See, I've got loads of these little tabletop synths, like you've got the Livens.
Can you raise your volume?
Who, me?
Well,
Sorry,
yeah.
sorry. It's probably because I've just moved away. Yeah, I've got all of these Livens, and I've got the IK stuff, and I need to figure out something for that. And I did think about, but then you'd have to take the desk space, and I haven't got much desk space left.
No.
So I need a real reorganisation here.
Yeah.
Well, the TX816 will be good because it's racks. So
Well, yeah, that's going to go into the rack so I've got down there. I've got my S6000, S2000, and Z8. They're all going to come out, and then I'm going to put the TX816 and then a line mixer, and then I'm going to try and get a MIDI interface so that I can just like have this all in one transportable unit.
How many Fairlights have you got in here at the moment?
Up here, I only got one. Downstairs, there's 3. So, but they're all packed up at the moment.
How much does a 2X go for these days?
Sorry, Wags.
How much does a 2X go for these days?
It should a reasonable 2X should go for. I would say anything between 10 and 15k UK, depending on history, whether it's got the Gotek drive instead of the floppies. But yeah, you shouldn't be paying much more than 15k for a decent 2 or 2X.
If it has history, does it come with those samples?
It all depends on who. I mean, certainly the ones that we've sold that have got, like we brokered Boris Blank's Series 3, and that went for a fairly decent price. But Boris was very strict in what we should leave on the the hard drives.
Mm-hmm.
So whoever, I can't remember who got it now, but whoever got it got some stuff, but it was really kind of generic-y stuff, All the other stuff, which I've been very privileged to have experienced and play, all the obvious, oh yeah, and all of that stuff is under lock and key, so for obvious reasons, but. It depends, I mean, the libraries that Peter puts on the ones that we sell now contain content that would be, quite surprising and quite interesting. Stuff from Peter Gabriel and Pet Shop Boys and Hans Zimmer and some Trevor Horn, some JJ Yexarlik, and other bits and bobs. Things that Peter has collected over the years, really.
I decided to just get a 10-year-old Mac Mini and just install Quasar Beach on there, and I'm going to buy a Wacom 21 UX like a drawing tablet for the screen. So
yeah, some good stuff. I haven't been paying too much attention to Alias, the new thing that he's doing.
Yeah, that seems like a evolution of Series 3, like his own.
It does, yeah. He tried to bring some Series 3 elements into Quasar Beach, but I kept saying, I don't think you should do that. I think you're muddying the waters a little. You should leave it as a 2X.
It's got the, it's like a 2Z, and then he's got the Series 3 stuff. But,
well, I've got an exclusive build that I commissioned him to build me one that was as close to an original 2X. So get rid of anything that wasn't on the 2X apart from like the MIDI capability, so I can assign MIDI stuff, but don't get rid of all the fancy extra bits, and give me that. So I use that if I'm doing like a seminar at a university or something, and I'm doing it online. At least then I can kind of give them an on-screen tour of what using a genuine 2X was like. So
the main problem is the CRT emulation isn't really that great. I mean,
it's cute, but
you can get a something called a RetroTink 5X, which does really, really great CRT emulation stuff, but it's like about 300 quid, and you'd have to put it out through, I think, HDMI, and then put it back in through components, 1080p, back into a monitor. So, I mean, Windows has a great like a filter for CRT emulation, but macOS doesn't so far. So it'd be great to just have it look like the original thing did.
Yeah. Well, I'm trying to get hold of a monitor for my 2X, but they're so few and far between, functioning ones anyway. But Peter has started. He's created a mold for the front piece, the surround with the recess for the light pen, and I think he's had about 10 of those made, and he's currently talking to a company that are going to produce the shroud, the black with the metal surround, and he reckons he can produce a good 10, 12 of these monitors to replace dead ones. Or
that guy in Switzerland was selling a 2X tube, but I suspect that was his old one, and he replaced his.
There are some.
New one.
Andre in LA was he found a supplier of the correct size tube. I don't know whether they were new old stock or new stock, but there weren't many around, and they weren't incredibly cheap. So yeah, I don't mind so much if it didn't have the original monitor and light pen, albeit that is one of the magical parts of it, because I'd prefer to use the keyboard anyway to navigate around. And my friend who does the these little boxes for the Series 3s that allow you to use a regular USB mouse and USB keyboard did design a similar thing for the Series 1 and the Series 2, but never commercially released it. But I spoke to him about it, and he said if I wanted one, he would build me one. So at price, of course, but we shall see. My Series 2 is voiceless at the moment because we had to take the voice cards and sell them to a paying customer who specifically wanted Series 1 voice cards.
Of course, because Jean-Michel Jarre had that. So.
Well, it's because of Jean-Michel Jarre that it's not necessarily a myth, but it's been hyped up beyond what it really is. The only reason Jean-Michel Jarre had Series 1 cards in his Series 2 is because his Series 2 wasn't a Series 2, it was a Series 1 that had the upgrades fitted. So, and that was always the plan with Fairlight, was that you'd create one machine and then you would just upgrade it by swapping cards and hardware. But then they got to the point where they realised they couldn't maintain that model because they needed to break out the outputs at the back. So that's why the Series 3 was the one that could have, but didn't, become sort of infinitely expandable.
How far away from the Series 2X do you think the Quasar Beach ESC is?
It's not a million miles away. You know, in terms of its operation, obviously it's quicker. You know, so when you select a page, it's there rather than you having to wait for it to go G, and then the page comes up. But in terms of functionality, it's pretty damn close. In terms of sound, well, obviously that's going to be difficult to reproduce, but whatever he's got going on in his sound engine there, and he has told me that it kind of, you know, it's like the teacher in Charlie Brown. I don't understand, but it's pretty decent. It's not the same. It doesn't operate in the same way. It doesn't have the dynamic filtering and all this kind of stuff going on. But it's good. For me, if you want a true kind of Series 2 experience, that's as close as you'll get.
Yeah. If you were composing a song, it wouldn't make that much difference.
Yeah. Indeed. Right, I need to go and visit the little boys' room. I'll be back in a moment. I shall mute my microphone this time as well.
Yeah.
Okay. If anyone wants to join the stream, here's the link for the stream. So come on in.
How's Cleo doing, Dave?
What?
How's Cleo?
Right with me. She was getting so loud I had to see her little head. She's doing good. She's very vocal. I think she's really excited that I'm here this early. I usually do this later in the day. She's doing good.
We did talk earlier about the past of Rob. Let's hear a bit about you, Keyth. How did you get into music?
Beyond, I can't really think. Before my parents turned up with some elderly relatives' upright piano, and put it in the front room, and I can't remember anything before that, other than that I started to sort of like pick out tunes and then wanted to play it. So this will be probably early teens. So they signed me up to a piano teacher, and I said to the piano teacher, I don't want to do the grades 1 to 8 and then whatever, because I don't like the pressure of exams. So she said, fine, we'll just do some other stuff. So I took lessons for maybe a year, and it got me going. And then that piano became beyond economical repair. And then, I mean, this was, a long time ago now, for my 18th birthday, they bought me this, something like a Farfisa home organ, dual manual, awful beat machine on the end of it. Again, it kept my interest going. And then when that finally died, there was absolutely nothing really, other than the fact that my interest in music started about the age of 11 when they bought me a transistor radio of my own, so I could go up in the bedroom and listen to it, and then got into pop music of the day. So that's the early 70s. And then just my love of music grew from there, and just it's forever expanded. And then it wasn't until I tell you what happened. About 84 or so, I met my missus, and she was dancing for a Morris dancing side, and it's a bit strange, but the tunes eventually piqued my interest. So I went and bought a piano and a piano accordion and joined and played along. I then bought an English concertina because it was a hell of a lot smaller and lighter. to carry rounds and play. So I've got that, still got that over there. And then, say, probably the late 80s, I sort of eventually got back into synthesizers and bought the Gen SX 1000 sitting in the corner over there, a bit unloved still. And then the Roland Alpha Juno 2 followed, and a Alesis HR16 drum machine, and a little 8-track Roland mixer. Kept me going for a few years, then that got hidden for a long time. And then I then bought the Roland XP30 and a 16-track mixer somewhere in here. And the monitors, the KRK, they've been here a long time now. And then nothing until COVID. And I started to save money because I was on furlough. So I literally dusted off the synths that I had and all the equipment. Oh, I've got a back of stuff down there I bought, and that needs to be put back into use. And then, say, just with COVID, I just looked at my bank account, decided I had quite a lot of money, and bought synths, and bought modular. So that's where I am, really. I think I've now come to a point where I've had to stop buying. If nothing else, I have not got room. I've got 3, 6, 7, 8, 9 keyboards, and I've only got a stand for 3.
I can still see some of the roof. That's space.
We've got modular, so you can't stop buying it.
No, but the keyboard side.
Give me those books.
No. Yeah, I know that. This is I spend my life
I'm kidding.
redesigning this space I've got. So the keyboard stand holds 3, but really, I want to go like Robbie and probably get a Jasper 6 layer stand, but I haven't got the width to fit one in without going backwards. And things like that, and what you can see of the loft, there's another half over there which is stacked with loft rubbish. So because of my own fault, I can't expand. I can expand backwards, but every time I think about something, to dismantle X amount of it, we only live in a small Victorian terraced house with the wife. And I could live moving it all about and things, but she couldn't.
Can you go downstairs?
No.
Like take a no. Okay.
Can you get out of the studio right now?
No, because we've got a small house and a small garden and the dogs. There's way too many bikes downstairs. Because I haven't really got anywhere in the garden to keep them. I haven't got a garage. I haven't got anything, a lock up or anything. So, I think if I could get rid of the bikes, I'd get something downstairs. I thought.
Can your dogs get up into the loft?
No.
Can you? No. Okay.
No. That's on a pull down wooden stair. But they might get up, they never get down again. I'm quite happy with what I've got, sort of thing, but I just say expanding, it just drives me mad. The thought of it, in a way, because all my rack mounts, which is sitting under there, is not used, sitting up there, that back there. I really want to put under the mixer, which is sitting here. And that's a 32 channel 8 bus, so it's big. So I could get 2 rows of rack underneath it. But the thought of that, at the moment there's a set of drawers under there, but just the thought of that is quite mind blowing.
Yeah, I haven't got space either. So
you have loads of space. I can see behind you, there's room for like 42U racks up the wall, like several of them.
Hang on, Wagoo, hang on. Yeah, well, this is just one of a number of racks I've got sat behind me.
Nice.
Oh, jeez, he's this guy.
And that's my Christmas haul, upside down, second hand. And I've got about another 5. Probably 84U. Got another 584U racks sitting behind me, hidden. So yeah, I mean, I can put that up there, but it doesn't account for the rest. It's just what I really need to do. In all honesty, what I need to do is retire. And then I'd have the time and a little bit of money to put it all in traction.
Yeah.
I think.
The idea.
But you can't. Can you build the house a little higher?
No. No. Seriously, because we're in a row of houses all joined together. So it would prove very difficult. No, I just need to tidy up the loft, and I'd have more than enough. Well, it would be horrendous up here. I don't know how the electrics last, but on a good day, if you switch it on, it'll keep you warm. And I can't see the electric meter spinning from up here, so you know.
Okay.
But Henrik has a huge amount of space in his studio. I mean, he could stick like a 6 tiers Jaspers behind him, or you could have 3 maybe 42U racks, crammed with synthesizers. It's just like you cannot complain about your lack of space because you have so much room behind you.
Yeah, we can sense it. We're just like, oh my god.
Yeah.
What's going on with that space?
Yeah, but there's a bed and there's no space here.
There is. If you can hang a picture, you can hang a rack. So
yeah, I know. but what if I want to change it in 2 months? That's my problem. If I put something up, I may need it different in 2 months. It's difficult.
Yeah.
So, well, Dave, how did you start?
I'm more concerned how I'm going to finish. But, oh, I was lucky. I had kind of a musical family, brothers, a lot of brothers that played different instruments. So we had a drum kit and that piano downstairs. So, I don't know, I always had a real interest in it. So I just went down there and played on them, whenever I could, kind of self-taught myself. And then at some point I got into high school and declared I was a drummer, whether I should have or not. It made sense at the time. The next thing you know, I'm over someone's house and we're like playing a song, and I guess I could keep a beat. So I was hired. And then, in all seriousness, once you get in that little band kind of element, you kind of you don't really want to leave it. And it's, so I really practiced just so I could keep up, with everyone else. But I had that classic though, kind of 90s period where techno and all that hit, and we had the 1604 Mackie me and my brother bought, and we had a reel-to-reel, and we had some little crappy Roland synth. I didn't even know if you could change the sounds. And it was kind of funny when we were talking about it. Like, to me, sound editing meant EQ. It's like the only way I knew to edit a sound was to run it through the Mackie and change the EQ on it and maybe a little bit of effects. So, that's more how, luckily I kind of learned that spatial thing, making things fit. And I think that's why I still don't have a problem with presets, because to me, I'm really playing them to look for that space, where things fit well. But so anyways, yeah, I did the band thing, and then there was a point in my 20s when I started working, I probably stopped doing anything for about 5 years. And it was probably the most miserable time of my life, honestly. Kind of lost, I didn't know where music fit and everything, you know what I mean? I think I hit a plateau with playing drums and stuff, and I felt like I wasn't going to be great at that. And I was kind of doing the, writing songs a little bit, but I really wasn't, I didn't really have anybody around me that I could see how they were really doing things. So, you just kind of plateau. So you kind of get out of it a little bit, and then kind of realized it was a horrible mistake. So I started playing drums again, and actually got better, but I was in my 30s at that point. But I didn't get better at the clip that someone does in their teens, right? Some of the muscle memory, some of that's real. You just can't get that finesse. It's gone. If you can't do those rudiments, you can learn them, but you'll never play them like a teenager can learn them, But I did learn a lot. I realized I could still play, and then at some point I got back into the band things, and I always had a real interest in synthesizers. And I remember my brother had a Arp Odyssey, and I really wasn't sure what it was, but I just knew every time I heard it, I knew that he was playing the Arp Odyssey, And I was like, man, I don't know what that, because he wasn't the type to let me touch it, but I was like, I don't know what that thing is. That thing is.
Did you get to play with the Odyssey much, or
what's that?
Did you get to play with the Odyssey much, or
no? I just got to
he
hear
didn't
it.
let you play with it.
Yeah, I knew what it was, and I knew it was like nothing anybody else was using, because all my, everybody was in the guitars at that point in the 90s, even going into the 2000s. But anyways, long story short, at some point we started, the band finally broke up, and it was about 15 plus years ago, and me and my friend started getting some analog gear, and we just started doing the kind of the hard, kind of like the imam things before it was cool. We were the geeks out there just jamming, like literally improv, and some of the performances were just a nightmare. But which was kind of funny, because we both came from very structured pop backgrounds, where everything was just practiced in studio, every little detail, and then we went into this completely different world where it was almost like we just said, we're done with this pop thing, we can't, it's over, and then then I kept exploring it more and more and more, and realized that beyond drums, that I had a real passion for sound, and that was the thing that I really loved more than anything. And I realized all the bands I loved were in the sound, and the bands that I didn't really ever find a real liking for were probably not, were more. It's why I didn't get into punk and a lot of that stuff. I couldn't figure out what I didn't really like about it, and what I didn't like, that it wasn't Thomas Dolby. It just wasn't. It wasn't creating any kind of imagination for me. It was just aggression, and nothing against it, right? I get the whole idea of it. I was just not interested in that, and that's why.
You have to forgive the Stranglers, surely.
Oh, I love the Stranglers, though.
Well,
They have sound. I mean, they have some cool stuff. In fact, I remember covering a couple of their tunes before I even knew the Stranglers were. I remember and my buddy was like, we got to cover this tune, and I was like, oh God, who's that? And but it's why maybe I never liked the Foo Fighters much, right? My wife loves them. I appreciate their songwriting, but they aren't sound connoisseurs, right? You can listen to the music and go, yeah, the sound is not it's not what they're trying to do. So I think that's why synthesizers will never bore me on any level. They're just. So and then of course I got into Eurorack a few years ago. I'm actually probably gonna I don't think I'm going to buy much more this year. I've kind of hit a nice spot with it where I said, this is cool. I think I know what I can do with this, but I
The
don't.
tip-top Buchla stuff is really nice. You want to
What's
buy
that?
any more? The tip-top Buchla stuff is really nice. You want to buy any more Eurorack?
I don't. That's what I just said. I don't.
Well, yeah, you don't, but yeah, it's
But you
Eurorack,
do.
so you
No, I
don't,
hear
but
what you're saying.
you do.
Of course I do, but I don't. But yeah. But I'm also interested in when I got into the mutable stuff. It really got me into the resonate, some of the resonator kind of stuff, and now I'm kind of interested in. I think I was talking about some of the. Oh shit! I can't even think of the name of it. Some of the continuum stuff with the luthier, with the resonators, and kind of getting back into a little more acoustic type of vibe with some of this stuff. Because I think one thing that's really boring the hell out of me is some of the electronic music's getting a little bit. I don't want to say soulless because I'm not trying to judge it. 'Cause I love a lot of it to death. But
Wait till AI starts composing tunes. Then you'll have real soulless music.
oh, but you know what I mean. Like there's some kind of texture or something that.
But I agree, the charts are, worthless right now. The charts are just, useless music.
Well, they're worthless
Yeah,
musically, surely.
I guess
Mostly.
I'm still at heart. I'm still a live musician, and most of my best parts of playing music have been live. Whether I was just playing my drums, playing the piano, playing bands. So there's, to me that sound is still really. I'm not a headphone listening to music kind of person. I don't know, and I think somehow I'm trying to figure out how to get that back, in in my own writing. And I think that's frankly why I stopped writing, is that I don't know where to go with it anymore. There's so much out there. I have no idea where to add to it. But I'm still fascinated. So, anyways, that's probably the long story. But yeah, no, I think there's tons of cool stuff to explore for sure.
Yeah. But it's good to hear your story. It's great to hear all of your stories because we only know you by your names and a few things you write on the chat. So it's nice to hear. So as Inky is thinking, I'm thinking of Wagoo. How did you get into music?
My parents were Black Sabbath fans. They were born in 1959, and they loved Black Sabbath, Deep Purple, Led Zeppelin, all those amazing bands from the 70s. So when I was born in 1980, and I grew up listening to these bands, and you could say they're the best bands ever really. And Pink Floyd. When I was 5 or 6, I was listening to Pink Floyd, "Wish You Were Here," or "Dark Side of the Moon," and it's just a great environment to be raised in, really. So, and then I suppose early 90s, I listened to Nirvana, that kind of thing, and yeah, it was a good time to be born, I suppose.
So when did the Synth collection start?
Well, weirdly, I suppose in the late 80s, I had a Magnus chord organ, which was a wind-powered, weird kind of thing. And I had a Yamaha PSS 170, and then I got into guitars in the 90s, and I didn't really get back into synths until about 2012. So first real synth I got was about the Nord Wave, and I got that around 2012, and since then I've just been into synths and that kind of thing. And I have more synth now than I have guitars, which is strange.
Good man, good man.
Have you ever sold a synth?
I sold my Quantum last year, and I replaced it with an Iridium.
Okay. So you're capable selling.
I hate selling synths. I hate it. I'd love to still have my Quantum, to be honest. Yeah. We have about 50 guitars and around 130 synths. So.
I thought I was bad.
Who's counting?
No, I totally agree. I think I worked out the other day. I would need something like 60 plug sockets, power sockets, if I put everything in.
Yeah.
And it's quite horrendous, really, isn't it? The number.
It's tough. I will admit, I can let things go, and I sort of do it for my own reasons. But you do, as you do it longer, your collection's gonna build, because you find some really special, unique pieces, and you start. And even now, I think we're seeing, as some companies close up or we go through these chip shortages, you sense kind of the finality of maybe that you are potentially hitting a window that could be it, and you just don't know if this company is going to make any more of something. I remember when I think I mentioned it before, when the Two Voice, when that got reissued about, was it 10 years ago? And I sat there going, man, I really want that synth, and I was like, it was like 3,000 or something, man. But it seemed outlandish at the time. And daggone it, that was it. That was the one. And they were hanging around for a couple years, and then I think that's played on some people's minds a little bit more. It's like, man, you got to jump on some of this stuff where you're just, which is kind of a bummer, but I guess it's good if you get the money. Let's see, 130 Wagoo. So what's the goal? Is it maybe 200?
I don't know, really. I mean, rack space is infinite, so
Oh yeah, it's infinite.
Yeah, so if you collect rack space, then there is no limit.
No, beyond any kind of human comprehension.
Yeah, but I do find myself buying a lot of keyboard synths recently, just because there's no alternative.
Racks are fun. The rack units are fun. They are.
The John Bowen Solaris, or the version of that was the keyboard chop version, which is just as massive, but the 1U version which has no controls. It's like, what the fuck?
I think that's why I've been buying sort of 80s and 90s-ish rack mount stuff lately, apart from the modular. But I've been buying, I've been looking into some more of the rack mounts. That's what I've been buying.
The delays and some of the reverbs you can get into.
Well, no, the synths as well.
Oh yeah, synths too.
Synths as well. That's just what I've been looking at as an alternative. To get the sound technology, if you like, rather than say I've run out of space for keyboards in reality at the moment. So,
Robbie, have you got an FS1R?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a little stack of the Rev 5 and the Rev 7, and then TX802 FS1R. But then in the corner, I've got a stack of rack things that I need to get into a proper rack. I've got a TG55 and a TG500.
TG77.
No, that's the next thing. I think so. I've made this big splurge now for this 816. So I'll let the dust settle on that one, and then what I really want is the SY99.
Yeah.
To get into that whole AEW.
Maybe approved.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So to get into the whole AFM AWM thing, I could get a TG77, but I'd rather have. I'm kind of the opposite. I mean, I appreciate rack gear. You know, obviously there are some things that are just fine as racks, and there are others that aren't. I mean, like the FS1R is, it should have been this big, keyboard synth with lots of direct access controls, but no, they stuck it into a 1U rack mount with the same key configuration as the DT Express drum module, which was horrible. Those tiny little round buttons. So whilst the TG77 would be nice, an SY99 would be nicer because because it's it's a better quality audio output on the 99 as well. But yeah, that'll be the next thing. But so I don't have any room for more keyboards. I've got this new keyboard that's coming in a few months' time, which I can't talk about, and I've got nowhere to put it. And I'm just like thinking, something's going to have to go. I'm actually considering if anybody wants to buy an Emax 2, because I've got a spare. I might sell that if anybody's interested. Just putting it out there. But I've got, there's stuff behind the door. I've got my CE25 behind the door. The other Emax 2 is in the corner there. I'm just nowhere to put stuff, and I can't do anything more because obviously I rent this house, so I can't do anything to the house. Can't build. So yeah, that'll be next. But no, I've got, what are the other rack bits I've got a Korg MEP4, which Yamaha MEP4, which is MIDI it's not called a MIDI effects processor. What's it called? It is a MIDI processor, and you can do some really weird things with it. And I might actually stick that in the rack with the 816. I've got an Akai MIDI patch bay. I've got what is it? The harmonizer thing. I can't remember what it's called now. Vocalist 2, I think. Got one of those. I've got a Korg 05R, little half U module. A whole bunch of stuff that are just sits in the corner there and just waiting for a decent rack. A nice big rack to stick it all in.
How much does the Fairlight? It was a Fairlight you're selling, right? Or two?
I've got got one that's ready to go if anybody wants one. Yes.
Yeah. How much? Is that?
That one is currently being listed at 16.5 UK.
Yeah.
But that's fully restored, fully upgraded, flight cased, original boxed manuals, original foot pedal. Yeah, pretty much a full-on. It's the most complete unit we've ever had.
Yeah.
Well, certainly I've ever had here.
Yeah, it sounds like a very good price, especially because it cost in Danish crowns. It's 1600 is about 160,000 crowns, 140 maybe, and it was 4 times as much when I tried it in the 80s. I remember.
Well, the one we got here, if you wanted to buy that brand new in the 80s, you'd be looking at it would have been between 50 and 75,000.
Oh, you said 1600, didn't you?
No, 16.5, so 16,500.
Okay,
Yeah.
Then the translation of prices were right.
Yeah.
Those are did.
Yeah. So, yeah, if anybody wants to buy that, my wife would be very happy because she wants the space back in the garage. So we picked that one up pre-COVID, and so it's been here for a while. So yeah, then I've got another Series 3, but it's only the mainframe, unit, so there's nothing else. It's just that, which is fine because it's the Series 3. You can just use any MIDI controller, and you can fit a VGA board in there pretty cheaply, and just connect it up to any VGA monitor.
When buying such an instrument, like with cats where you can or dogs where you can see their mother and grandmother and so on, do you have a list of who have owned it before you?
No, there. I know someone who has a partial list of systems that were sold through Psycho in the UK. And he's an ex-Psycho employee, so he kind of he would be the go-to guy for Fairlights. He would go and service them or upgrade them, and so he had a list of. And when you see the list of names, it's Thomas Dolby, Kate Bush, all of those names are in there, and there are some serial numbers attached to it. But no, there's no definitive list, and I don't think there would be anything left over from the original company, because obviously they went bankrupt 89 and then again in 92, I think it was. So
but don't they still exist and make video effect machines and such stuff?
So what happened was the original company went bust in 89. Then Peter and Kim, the two guys behind it, got some venture capital investment and started up a new Fairlight. So they called themselves Fairlight ESP, Electric Sound and Picture, because they knew that their market had changed. By 89 you'd got Akai, Emu and Sonic, all these other people producing much cheaper equipment. So they knew that their future lay in post-production, movies, that kind of thing. So they set up ESP, and that failed a few years later. And then the company was kind of like a management takeover or a management buyout, and they became Fairlight Pty, which is like Fairlight Limited in Australia, and set up an office in the UK. They set up an office in LA, Hollywood, and they ran for quite some time, and they built predominantly post-production audio equipment, really high-end, really top-notch. So mixing desks and audio interfaces and DSP processing and all of this kind of stuff. So there was no musical instruments. It was all kind of that kind of thing. And then around 2010, 2011, this was when Peter Vogel approached them and said, "Can I license the name Fairlight back, because I'm producing this 30th anniversary edition. I'm going to produce 100 machines, and I'm also doing an iOS app." And they agreed, and then he contracted them to develop the software for the reissued version of the Fairlight. And at some point, the owner, who was getting on quite a bit now, decided to retire and hand the company over to his son. And his son was a dick, basically, and took a look at this agreement and decided not to honour it. So then Peter took them to court. They then countersued, and there was all this shenanigans going on. They won. Then Peter appealed and won. And then, hello, Matt. And it went backwards and forwards. And eventually, Peter won the case. But before they could pay out what they owed him, they basically stripped the business and sold all the IP to a company called Blackmagic Design, who produce, the A10 Minis and Pros, and who are big in the sort of cinema, audio, post-production, cameras, and all that kind of stuff. So they now own the Fairlight brand, and they do produce a few bits of equipment that use Fairlight technology. but nowadays the word Fairlight is hidden away as a drop-down menu in DaVinci Resolve, which is their audio editing program, and it's just basically what they call their audio, suite within their software. So it's kind of been reduced to that now. So the name Fairlight does live on to this day, but nowhere near as illustrious as it once was.
But it was a big thing when it was.
Kind of. I mean, it was a big thing. I think its presence back in the day, like in the 80s, the name Fairlight was synonymous with this groundbreaking piece of technology that was incredibly expensive and not many people could afford to buy, but it was doing amazing things. But the company itself was always a very small business in Australia, hand building these things and getting every aspect of the business wrong. They weren't business people. Peter is an inventor. That is, he is your archetypal mad inventor. He will come up with all sorts of crazy ideas. Some of them not so crazy, and some of them have been incredibly successful. Like, basically, you can thank him for TiVo and anything that does hard disk recording, and uses an electronic program guide, because he basically invented the electronic program guide that you now find as it's a standard on every TV and receiver of any kind. So much so that he was called as an expert witness when TiVo took Virgin Media to court a few years ago, and they called it because there was some kind of thing about the EPG, and so they flew him from Sydney to London for this court case. He actually invented a technology that was built into that would eliminate the adverts. So you could press your button to record your show, and every time an advertising break would come on, it would snip that out. So when you came back to watch your program, you could watch it all the way through without the adverts.
Oh, is that the software called Video Redo?
I can't remember what the software was called, but ABC in America, in Australia, took him to court and won because,
Yeah, I think it was Video Redo. I remember if I had a time stream from my video recorder, I could put it into Video Redo. It would find the commercials and.
I know this did it live. This did it live.
Okay.
So that it's just like like a regular PVR works nowadays. You just say I want to record that film, and as it's recording, it would pick up where the adverts were, and just so that when you went back to your recording, the adverts weren't there. They were just, and he got sued. He got the arse sued off of him. What else? He's invented a bunch of medical alert equipment. These things, like my mother-in-law's got this little necklace that's got a button on the end of it, and if you press that button, it then calls a help centre, and they will call emergency services or family members or whatever. So he did something like that as well. It's a whole bunch of things, and there's a whole bunch of things that he told me about that he invented that never came along. He's never a musical guy. He had to be told who Stevie Wonder was. When Stevie Wonder said, "I want a Fairlight," who's Stevie Wonder? So he was never really into that. He was just like, Kim approached him and said, "I want to build the greatest synthesizer of all time. Do you want to help?" He's like, "Okay." So.
Yeah, but I can understand that, not knowing Stevie Wonder. I have it the same way with modern artists today. So, and I work on a TV station, and they just walk by, and I know nothing about them. So.
Yeah, no, it is. Yeah, it's. He's a very, very clever man, but what he's done. See, when he had that court case, that went on for years and years. It was only settled about 2-3. No, it was before COVID, so it must have been about 3 or 4 years ago, it finally got settled. When they first, so he sued them. They then countersued, and then they tried to get the court session moved from Sydney to Melbourne, which would have cost him a fortune to travel from Sydney to Melbourne all the time. And so he decided to represent himself rather than engage, solicitors down there. And in doing so, studied law whilst he was fighting his own case. And he qualified and is now on the Australian bar, and now has his main source of income is as a lawyer for people looking to protect their intellectual property, because he's clearly got a lot of experience in that field. So if you're in Australia and you want to have a decent lawyer that can do all that, then he's your man.
Why does Peter Vogel have so many voice guards and so on?
Why does he have what, sorry?
Why does he have so many voice guards in Fairlight still? And, other Fairlight. So,
What, the original Fairlights?
yeah. Why does he still have so many components?
Oh, he doesn't. No, Peter Wilk. So this is I think there are two Peters. There is Peter Vogel, who is the inventor, and there's Peter Wilk, who is the guy I work with, who used to work at Fairlight. He's the restorer, and he was incredibly astute in '89 at the bankruptcy sale on in Rushcutters. He turned up and knew exactly what he could buy that would help him carry on the business, and bought up boxes and boxes and boxes of Fairlight components for a few dollars a box. Because most people that turned up to that sale were buying office furniture and stuff, as people do. When a company shuts down, people go to these bankruptcy sales to buy the chairs, the desks, the furniture. They don't necessarily turn up to buy a whole bunch of computer cards that will only work with certain products. But Peter Wilk turns up and says, well, if I buy all of this stuff, I can start a business where I can help maintain what's already out there, which is how that all kind of carried on. So, but then as Peter finds systems, sometimes those systems are beyond repair, so you salvage what you can. He makes a lot of cards now. He just found some blank PCBs for the audio router. So on the Series 3, you can have individual audio outputs from each channel, stereo, or you can have an audio router card which has three, I forget how many pins, 15 or 25, I can't remember, 3 D subs basically, and each of those D subs can carry 8 discrete audio channels. So you can have 24 audio outputs off of one card and 3 cable snakes. And I don't know how he found them, where he found them, but he found a bunch of them. So he's building those cards out now. So because they're quite popular these days, because it's one cable to your mixing desk instead of 16. So. But yeah, he finds stuff here and there. He got a phone call actually, just before Black Magic acquired what was left of Fairlight a few years ago. He got a call from somebody he knew that worked in the warehouse and said, Pete, if you want to get down here, get a van. They're literally throwing all of this old gear away that's just been stuck in the back of the warehouse. So Pete just goes down with the van and just throws as much in there as possible. So he's got old MFX systems, old Series 3 systems, cards, bits and bobs, spares and stuff. So yeah, just throws it in the garage, and there you go.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
Guy in I think Finland, he was going to build new synthexes.
Oh yeah.
But he got blocked by Mario Maggi.
Right.
Because he owns the copyright or the
brand.
So,
yeah.
But he bought all that stuff from Italy.
Mm-hmm.
When Synth was gone bust.
Mhm.
So it's a bit sad that he can't make new fairlights, new synthexes.
Yeah.
And we've not heard anything since. And Mario Maggi was supposedly going to produce a Synthex 2.
Okay.
But that's why it got blocked. But we've not heard anything since. About,
So somebody's been blocked from doing something really good and interesting because somebody else thinks I might want to do this.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Indeed. Yeah.
See, I've often heard people, especially when the B word is mentioned in certain discussions. Oh yeah, why don't they make a Fairlight? Who would fucking want a Fairlight these days?
I'd love one.
Yeah, but I mean,
I settled for a Quasar Beach Mac dedicated thing. So, yeah.
But that the Quasar Beach app that you're running is running on a modern system with
Yeah.
I mean, it having used these things, they frustrate the hell out of me because they're so antiquated. And when I had this moment, because like for years and years and years I lusted after these things, and when I finally got one and powered it up, I'm like, oh, it looks amazing. Oh. Right, how do I do this simple task?
Mm-hmm.
It's key, type command, go this page, da-da. How do I copy this? Oh, I can't really I can't copy and paste. Okay. How do I put that in? Oh, I can't drag and drop it? Oh, of course not. Of course I can't. And it's horrible, so you have to kind of forget everything and start again. And
yeah.
I honestly don't know what would the workflow in a modern environment is counterproductive. It's quaint, it's cute, but it's counterproductive.
Mm-hmm.
The sound quality is desirable because there is something that a Fairlight does to the sound of its samples that I've not heard anywhere else. The Fairlight has a really big bottom end to it, especially the Series 3. It's a massive, lower end to it. But you can get there with other things. I think probably the most desirable thing sonically of a Fairlight is what the Series 2 does, and the Series 1 and the Series 2, which is this dynamic filtering that colours the sound in a particular way. So if you could recreate that, and I'm sure that's doable, although what you'd have to recreate is to get it, because for example the Series 3, you've got a 6809 processor on every voice card that is handling all of that stuff, and then of course you've got the 68,000 CPUs.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas on the Series 2X you haven't got a processor per card, but it's still having to do all of that dynamic filtering and the pitch shifting, and that's what gives it the sound. And because we found better ways of doing that, that's the desirable thing about those things. It's the quality of the sound. But if you want to, most of the people I speak to that say, "Oh, I'd love a Fairlight," I say, "Why? Why would you like a Fairlight?" "Oh, it's having all those classic sounds." Well, fuck me, you can go and buy a plug-in or a sample library for 150 quid, if not less. You can
It's
probably
mostly
download them for free.
It's mostly pitch shifting down sounds.
Processing,
Pitch shifting down, and it sounds amazing.
Yeah, that would be the one thing that if you could recreate accurately the way that the Fairlight sampled and processed those samples, then you've got the essence. That's the cool thing. That's the little genie in the bottle. Everything else, workflow, has been done so much better, so much easier, so much quicker. If you sat somebody down with Page R and Logic, Page R would be turned off within 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Because it's it's not it's an 8-track monophonic sequencer.
But it did produce so many amazing songs.
It forced people into making music in a particular way that delivered, as you say, some amazing. It's that whole thing about creative restrictions breeds creative ingenuity. If you tell someone you can't do that, well, I'm going to figure out a way of working around that, and that's when you get the magic stuff. But you got to remember that in 1980, 81, 82, if you wanted to see your composition on screen, there was no other option.
Yeah.
And that for many people was groundbreaking. Nowadays, we can see our composition on our mobile phone. So,
Robbie, Homegrown is asking, how far has MAME CMI got?
I know there are a couple of guys like independently working on it. Well, at least when I say guys, a couple of people. I don't know. I know one of them's a guy called Vincent, I think. It's coming on quite well, apparently. I've not tried it for a long while, but they've got the operating system working, and they've got all of the functionality working, but it's actually modeling the hardware, which is the difficult thing.
I think you have to explain what MAME CMI is.
So MAME is the Wagoo. You'll be able to tell me what it stands for. It's an arcade machine emulator.
Something machine emulator. It's focused on emulating hardware.
Yeah, and it's very popular in people
arcade machines.
Yeah.
But...
So yeah, it's basically a hardware emulating environment that has been used predominantly in arcade machines. So you'll find a lot of MAME arcade boards and machines all replicated in there. And then it was a long while ago actually, somebody said, I wonder if we could model the Fairlight in this. And some people started to sort of dabble here and there, and in recent years, certainly I think during the pandemic, some people have thought, I've got some time now, we can try it. So it's coming on. I think there is a Facebook group dedicated to it, and there are people that sort of every now and again they say, I've just managed to decode this or emulate that, and get things working a bit more stable. So if somebody could crack that properly, that would be interesting. And then there's Ali James, who's this French guy who has a company called Ali James Labs, and he creates. He's got a bunch of plugins. I've got his Lindrum.
I love his Simmons stuff.
Yeah, he does the Simmons. He does the Lindrum, although it's called. He had to change the name because Roger got upset. But it is essentially it's a modelled Lindrum, so it has all of the hardware anomalies, like the slight delay on some of the sample starts and that. So it has that whole groove and everything. It's brilliant, and it sounds exactly like a Lindrum. And you can, it also allows you to import other EPROMs, so other bin files. You can find these bin files of drum emulators and all that, and you can then if you've got those files, you can import them into VPROM, and you'll get access to all of the sounds of a drum emulator or a DX, Oberheim DX or something. So it's a really useful thing. But God, how many years ago? At least 5 years ago, possibly more. Said he was working on a thing called Samplite, which was his Fairlight emulation, and it still hasn't come out. And maybe once or twice a year he'll post a small update and saying, it's coming soon, but it just hasn't surfaced. But he claims to have modelled a lot more of the hardware within that than others have done, because Arturia's one doesn't model the specific hardware. It uses a lot of off-the-shelf models for like the DACs and the filters, but it's not what was being used at the time. So it gets you there, but and then in the mix you'd never know. But yeah, so Ali James is supposed to be working on something, but it hasn't appeared yet. But his others, if it's as good as his other stuff, then I'm hopeful. But it's taken a very long time.
Okay, Matt, how did you get into this?
How did I get into it? I'm a dabbler. I'm no musician. I never have been. Don't pretend to be. Got into sound when I first heard Autobahn. There's a specific bass sound in it, and I was about 4 when I heard it, and my brain went, "What is that?" Because in the early 70s there was just nothing like it. And I think it was then Oxygen came along, and it was another sort of moment. And I've been fascinated with sounds ever since. I'm a singer primarily, so I've always had sort of a musical interest, but always loved synthetic sounds. And for one reason and another, I've never had the facility to play keyboards, use synthesizers, this and that, until the last few years. And I got into, I bought, I can't even remember what my first synth was. And I've just bought bits and pieces here and there, and I just mess about. I don't do it seriously. I just mess about. So, but yeah, I just love sounds. So I just play about. It's not a serious thing for me in any way, shape, or form.
I think people who think it's serious are not really musicians. They are just workers.
True.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Okay. I'm thinking, should we wrap it up or should we continue with something? Do you have anything we need to talk about?
No, it's just been nice to actually do something. I got my beer. It was 20 to 1. I thought I'll sit down, I'll have my beer, I can do a little bit of something. I'll have Ranzee on the other screen, and I'm sat there and I'm waiting, and it's, what the fuck? And then I looked at the screen. It said streaming live in 6 days' time. Like, oh fuck! I honestly thought it was this week. I don't know if
me
changed.
too.
I don't know if he changed it.
Well.
Yeah.
Let's continue until Kent starts his stream in another few hours.
I did see on the ProSynth last night there was a comment saying there was no Ranzee this week.
Yeah, I saw that too.
Yeah, because I think I just said last night. I just said, oh yeah, Ranz will be on tomorrow. So I didn't see that. It's difficult. When I'm doing the show, it's difficult for me to read the comments and concentrate on running the thing. I've got to say though, I'm sorry, Ben Simpson. Fucking hell, that thing. He messaged me at like 6:30. Oh, I've got another bit of, because he'd done all the black and white edits for last year's show. He'd done all of those in his own time, or during work's time, I think, and sent them over. And then he sends me this thing about like 6:30 saying, "Oh, I've just done I've had to re-edit it, done this little bit." And I said, "Well, what is it?" He said, "Oh, it's just the end bit, but I've done it properly." I'm like, "Okay." So I played it, and I thought, "Oh, for fuck's sake, this is brilliant." So when we did it last night, it was...
What a wanker.
Indeed.
You know what's going to happen? People are going to grab that video and do their own voiceovers on it.
The challenge has been laid down.
Yeah. Don't tempt me.
Because when you put it on, I'm thinking, his voice sounds a little different. Hang on a minute, it looks a bit out of sync. And I was going to say, I don't know what you've done to this, Ben, but your voice is out of sync. And then I realised what it was. And then I started laughing, and so then we very hastily, within sort of like a minute or two, agreed what the setup would be, and then we did it. So and it was funny as hell.
It was a good show.
What a wanker.
So yeah, all credit to him for that one.
Yeah, but I hope Dom Hawkins okay, because
Yeah, I haven't heard anything from him. All I've heard is what Kent said. So
Yeah, he couldn't elaborate on it yesterday, so real shame.
yeah, but hopefully they'll get to the bottom of what it is, and we'll see him back soon.
Go on.
I'll say he popped in on our Christmas show, didn't he? Briefly with Luna May and the dog. And that was the last I saw or heard from him. So
Yeah.
He's still posting on his Discord.
what Dom is?
Yeah, he's putting up like links to.
No, he doesn't
YouTube.
do that.
Oh, does he not? Sorry.
That's automatic. He's got a lot of bot that scans, so he does all of. It's the bot that does that.
Okay.
So I haven't seen or heard anything from him. Which he's not well. I don't expect to. So. Yes. Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
Well, at least I got away from Kent without getting castrated by Nelly yesterday.
How's your Jupiter case?
It's there.
Nice.
what did you got like a wall, like a wall display or something?
Front panel, isn't it?
He's given me a complete front panel. Well, not a complete front panel, but he's given me a front panel which I'm going to put on the wall and have lights and stuff in it. Weighs a ton.
Yeah.
I didn't realise how heavy they were.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a big old boy. But
No,
yeah,
cheap shit.
no, not like you get now.
And what else did you take or collect? Anything else?
Picked up a computer, his old studio computer.
That's it.
Yeah, the plan being that I'm just going to refurbish it, put it up for sale, and any money I make or any money that it makes will go to Luna May's charity. Oh gosh,
Nice.
so yeah, just might as well make use of it.
Yeah.
So it's sitting over there, waiting to be worked on. So yeah.
Did you meet Tiny?
No, I'd left before
Oh.
he turned up. I met Elliot.
Yeah.
God, that was unreal. It was just like keyboards coming out. All this stuff.
6 of them, wasn't it?
I think so, something like that. But yeah, it was just a nice day sitting there. I think we sat there for about 4.5 hours just chatting,
Yeah.
just talking rubbish. Yeah, it was a good day. Good day.
I did that once when I went to see him, and it was in the middle of summer or something. We were out in the backyard, and Kent had bought Fiona this, on my recommendation, a 1964 bottle of Barolo. It was hundreds of pounds for the anniversary. And me and Kent are out in the back workshop. He's working on this memory moog, and we're sort of and she comes out with this bottle and a couple of glasses because Kent wasn't drinking then, and says, "Would you like a glass?" I said, "Well, I'm driving," and she was most insistent. So I said, "I'll have a little one." And it was so difficult not because it's a lovely bottle of wine. But yeah, I mean, you can literally sit there and talk to those two till the cows come home.
Like I say, it was just lovely. We were just talking about everything. Never again. Second visit, never made it to the studio. It was just talking about anything and everything.
You didn't get to play the CSA?
No, I didn't see it.
I know. Yeah, it's been. Yeah, the first 2 times I went there. And then I think it was the 3rd time I was like, no, right, we're going upstairs. We're going upstairs. And Kent had got the emulator 1 out for me. So I was like, thank you.
Yeah. Yeah,
so I think I played that more than I did the CS.
Yeah. No, like I say, it was more about going to see him and Fiona really than anything else,
That was the day I popped the finger at the Timberwolf. I waited till he went out, and I went, take that.
In the summer, it'd be great to have like a barbecue or some kind of gathering in Kent's garden.
Well, he's supposed to be doing something, isn't he? An outdoor hardware jam in Kent's back garden.
Bloody hell.
I know.
That's a long old drive. It was 4 hours each way.
Yeah. It's not so bad for me, but for you, it's a hike.
Did you see Stonehenge?
Yes, through the mist, because it was dark when I drove up and dark when I got back. So it was sort of there, but yeah, good day.
I'm up to Nottingham next Saturday.
Any plans for the coming days? Rob, you were doing something with the Osmos, right?
Well, we've got the Osmos show, the special, this Friday with Ty, and then the next day I'm driving up to Nottingham to pick up the TX. So
that's
deal is done.
So it's next Saturday.
Next Saturday.
I've got an Osmos within arm's reach, and it's glorious.
Yeah. By all accounts, it is a stunning thing. So really looking forward to having Ty on the show, who can, give us his expert opinion and, play it, and give us some examples. So
yeah, play badly. Yeah.
Somehow I don't think Ty will be the one playing that badly.
And Matt, do you have any plans?
Working on that computer by the looks of it. Getting that ready, because I think that needs to get done. Because it's not a small computer by any stretch. It weighs the size of a medium-sized child for a start. It weighs a ton. But yeah, just get it sorted out, get it working, and out the door, I think.
Okay. Keyth?
Well, yeah, because yes, a different direction really. Because I bought a second-hand Boss RC505 Mark II.
No,
that's sitting at work, and I think, in a way, I'm hoping it might get me a little bit more towards hardware jams in having a basis. But that's my thoughts. That's my challenge for the new year.
I've always fancied having a go with one of those.
Yeah, I mean, for this sort of sampler looper, then it seems to be just a quite logical, basic way up to a point. And then whatever integration there is into the sort of semi-modular, in that way as well. So I don't know yet. I've just got to get it home and see what I can get out of it.
Wagoo, any plans?
I like to actually make some music, because I have loads of gear and I enjoy playing around with that gear, but I don't actually have any music to show for that amount of gear. So I'd love to, put out an album or tracks or something.
But I'm the same, Wagoo, and Homegrown said, didn't he, in the post about, was it Homegrown said in the post about making music? Was it David? No, it was David, wasn't it? Who started the post about, almost
Mr. Svrjcek.
Mr. Svrjcek having the gear, like all of us in a way, and not putting anything out with it. So
yeah,
I think a lot of us owned up and said, yeah, we're in the same boat and we're going to make amends this year.
That's the plan.
Yeah.
And my plans.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I was going to say, in a way, I know Kent. I don't know how much Kent has a knowledge of, well, I say music, because I presume he plays by ear most of the time because he can't read it. But that's what I miss about like his show is you couldn't shout out even the basic chords of a tune or a song or something, and you go D and it'd hit the D and things, or he'd say which one's D. I don't know whether he knows his notes, whether he could formulate jams. I know it's difficult.
Cam plays some amazing can play some amazing sounds on his show.
Yeah.
But
if you stretched out chords,
doesn't really get recorded to.
Would it blow his mind, sort of thing, or would he be able to pick up and go, yeah, that's that one there, I can do that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think Kent should also put out some music, because the stuff he plays, just improvising, is amazing. It sounds like Vangelis, and Spongelis is a real thing, and that should be out there.
Yeah. My plans. I just got the Mini Freak this week, and I will do a library for it.
You want a tester?
Yeah.
and if you can send the hydroship over as well, that would be great. Yeah.
And then I have an older album on Bandcamp I just released yesterday, but it was released on other platforms 4 years ago. It's a pop album where I have a guest artist, an Englishman called Chris Murray. His artist name is almost David. And he sings fantastic, so I'll post a link. Check it out on my Bandcamp page. It's 4 songs, and it's not what I usually make, but it's good, I think. So let's wrap it up. Thank you all for coming. It has been it has been a good stream. We miss Name That Synth. I was thinking about doing something, but in another way, where I wanted to hum something which sounded a lot like a specific synth, but I dropped that idea. But
I've been meaning to make Name That Synth for so long.
Yeah, me
because
too.
I have a lot of synths that could be, candidates for that kind of thing. But
and I don't see a problem in taking a synth which has already been on Name That Synth earlier. If only it sounds different than before.
Sure.
That's okay. Yeah. So yes, let's wrap it up. Thank you for the show. It was nice to see you all. Yeah.
And you take care.
Yeah. Bye.
Bye.
Cheers.